Kayn is being played so much in the jungle at the moment, and he's definitely one of the top tier junglers. So if you do want to learn how to play him, then here's a quick guide that you can watch even in Champion Select. So Kayn is basically two champions rolled into one with his two forms. One's an assassin and one is a tanky bruiser. Red Kayn, or Rust, is an unkillable mobile bruiser who darts in and out of fights absorbing tons of damage, dealing his own damage and surviving for what seems like forever. Rust is very prone to kiting though, and if he gets put behind early game he simply won't be able to do much at all. Blue Kayn is a highly mobile assassin who zooms around the map one-shotting any squishies that he sees. He does however really struggle with those tankier team comps, and is extremely prone to being burst down himself. Both Kayns are fairly weak before they get their form, and this can potentially leave a pretty large window where they can be punished. If you're playing Red Kayn or Rust, you want to go for Conqueror, Triumph, Tenacity and Lust Stand, followed by Boots and Cosmic Insight. This setup is focused on extra healing and survivability. If you're playing Blue Kayn though, you want to grab yourself Dark Harvest, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection and Ingenious Hunter, followed again by Boots and Cosmic Insight, or even Futures Market if you do prefer it. This rune setup is focused on as much burst as possible. For your skill order either way though, you want to max your Q first, then your W and finish off with that E. So when it comes to your items, for Red Kayn you want to focus your build around tanky DPS with as much survivability as you can. Therefore the perfect item is going to be Gore Drinker. After this, your core setup will be Death's Dance, Black Cleaver and Umuramana. Then you can just go for those tankier bruiser options like a Spirit Visage, a Thornmail, Guardian Angel, Sterak's Gauge or even a Maw of Mount Mortius. For Blue Kayn you want to focus your build around as much damage, mobility and burst as you can. Prowler's Claw complements all of this perfectly. After your mythic, your core setup will be Muramana, Serylda's Grudge and Edge of Night. But there are also a fair amount of situational or preferable options to go for, including Serpent's Fang, Yumu's Ghostblade, Guardian Angel and of course Kenpunk Chainsword. Against those easy matchups you can look to power farm with ease, but also help yourself to the enemy jungle camps as well. In easy matchups, Kayn has very little risk. If he meets the enemy jungler he can either just kill them, or get away easily with his E after taking their entire jungle. Remember though that some matchups depend on which form you've taken and if you've upgraded into your form yet, so don't let this throw you off guard in certain matchups. Against harder matchups though, you're going to struggle against aggressive early game junglers who can look to abuse the map whilst you're farming up, or those junglers that can invade you early game and outduel you. You want to be really careful getting behind against these matchups, or they'll simply live in your jungle and ruin your game. Kayn works really well with any champions who can provide some kind of setup crowd control to enable him to pull off more successful ganks. Kayn himself doesn't offer any crowd control until he's upgraded, but only if he's Red Kayn, so any CC that his team can provide will make a huge difference. Kayn also works insanely well with Yuumi, as it doesn't really matter which form he's in, the two of them together are a very difficult combo to beat. So Kayn's early game is pretty weak, but he does have a very healthy jungle clear. The majority of games you're going to want to do a full 6 camp clear to get level 4 as quickly as possible. If you're on blue side you can start red, then Krugs, Raptors, Wolves and then blue and Gromp to finish. On red side you can start blue, Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, red and then Krugs to finish. After doing your full clear and getting level 4, try and get an early gank in to collect those orbs. If not, grab yourself a Rift Scuttler and get a quick reset. If you don't have a leash, you can just start on your Raptors as you take them super easily with your Q. Then you can just move on to your red buff at level 2 afterwards. So in the early game you're going to want to focus on getting that upgraded form as soon as possible. If you're playing Red Kayn, focus on ganking melee lanes. Dealing damage to them will give you those orbs you need and allow you to unlock the upgrade quicker. If you're playing for Blue Kayn, prioritise ranged lanes instead. If you do somehow manage to do it the wrong way around, you will be able to unlock the other one later, as long as you haven't already upgraded. When ganking you want to use your E through walls to bypass wards and get behind your enemies easier. This ability really does give you the upper hand despite your somewhat lackluster early game. Kayn has no crowd control early game, and pre-6 and pre-upgrade his ganks really aren't that great, as the only thing you offer is a bit of damage. Try and gank for lanes that have crowd control if possible, but just try and focus on power farming a little bit in the early game, getting to that level 6 and upgrading to your form as soon as you can. When you are level 6 though, you may still not have too much to offer, but you can now dive very easily as your ultimate drops turret aggro. Start the dive, deal some damage and then pop your R to finish them off and survive at the same time. So when you're playing Red Kayn in team fights, it's all about disruption. Whether it's sitting on your backline and preventing those threats from killing your team with your damage, knockups and healing, or diving their backlines and going for kills instead. Rust has a ton of survivability, so extended fights are really where he thrives. Try and constantly use your E to flank and get behind teams and benefit from its self-healing too. With your E, your Gore Drinker and your ultimate, you'll be very difficult to shut down, especially if you're in control. For Blue Kayn though, team fighting is all about being an assassin and eliminating those carries as often as you can. You want to constantly play around walls and float around the map looking for any chance you can to get to one-shot those enemy squishies. Kayn doesn't even need his ultimate to do so when he's really far ahead, so limit testing and learning your damage output will be a huge part of playing Blue Kayn. Kayn's WQ combo is more than enough damage to pop a hyper carry in the late game, but if you need to, you've also got Prowler's Claw and your ultimate for even more damage and mobility. Let's finish off this Kayn guide with a few quick tips. Kane's E grants vision, which is a massive benefit and makes him do his job so much easier. This allows Kane to spot enemies ready for him to assassinate, or just allows him to check those objectives easier. Kane's ultimate requires you to hit your enemy with an attack or an ability before using it, but items also work in a similar manner. Gore Drinker and Prowler's Core are the obvious ones, but even items like Thornmail will make this work, which is a great option if you're playing Rust. You can also use your W whilst inside walls, which is a fundamental part of playing Blue Kayn. But it can also come in handy before you get your form, as your enemies will not expect it and it'll be much harder for them to dodge it. That's going to conclude our short guide on Kayn. Good luck and have fun.